You're with Dion at HDpiano, and this is Mission Impossible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's where we're going to leave it for part 1. That's enough breathtaking action to get us started with by many amounts. High intensity, high adrenaline, just like the films and the old TV show as well. So this arrangement is really based on the original TV score, more so than the modern remake of the score, and I'll show you some differences why that is. But to get started, we're going to look really at the signature bass line or the signature ostinato that comes in through most of this first part. And this is all happening mainly in the left hand. So the left hand starts on G. And I'll show you it as a single note first, and then we'll add in the octaves afterwards. So we're on G, hit it twice, up through B flat and C, G twice again, then down to F, walk it up via F sharp, and then we start the whole thing again. There's always 2 on the G, first time up through B flat and C, next time down through F and F sharp. Rhythmically, this song is quite interesting. It's in a time signature of 5/4, which means we have 5 beats per bar. That's what makes this song really roll along and feel a little bit like it never catches its breath. It's that extra little beat in there that we don't usually hear. Most songs 4/4 or maybe 3/4 or 6/8, but 5/4 is a little more unusual. And so there's a way you can count 5/4 that might be a little easier than counting all the way up to 5. We can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or you can split it up into 2 groups. So a group of 3 and a group of 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. Because 3 plus 2, of course, equals 5. So you've got multiple ways of counting something in a more unusual time signature. You can break it up into smaller chunks, much easier sometimes than counting out the full count. Particularly if you're ever playing something in 7/8, which we're not in this case, but 7 as a word is 2 syllables, really hard to count quickly. So keep that in mind if you ever come across a 7/8 song. So this riff, on top of our 5/8 groove, or 5/4, counting-wise, we hit on 1 and 2 and, on the 2 and then the B flat on the 4, the C on the 5. Same pattern for the next bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 5. I'm going to start speeding it up. And because this is a spy action score, film and TV franchise, we want to make it as dramatic as possible. And one of those ways we can make it dramatic as possible is by making those notes shorter. And we're not quite full staccato, which would be that short, but we're really just accenting those notes. Maybe like you're socking it to a bad guy. The way we can make it more exciting is by playing 2 of the same note at the same time in octaves. So the first time this riff comes in, we will be playing that left hand in octaves. Hot tip with octaves, let your hand rest in between each note rather than trying to move a stiff shape around the piano. Much harder to do this than it is to let everything become a little more floppy as you move around. So we run through that octave riff once by itself, The second time through, right hand gets to join the party, and it's going to start all the way up here. So middle C is here. We're 1, 2 octaves above middle C, playing D and G. And we are going to hit those staccato. We're going to hit them on 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 5. So that's on the 2 and on the 3 end. One more time. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 5. The next bar, we do the same rhythm, but we drop the G from the top underneath the D. So now we have G at the bottom and D at the top. And that precedes the left hand walking up. So let's do that all together. The left hand playing octaves, one run through, and then the right hand joining in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, now we're going to kick on into the first part of the melody. Now the melody in the right hand is going to be starting off by really emphasizing the harmony or the key of this song. It's in G minor, and our first run of notes, B flat, G, and D, are actually a G minor chord, but in an inversion. We're in a second inversion. So we're running down through B flat, G, and D, and the way that we get tension in this song, which is full of tension, is by moving in semitones or half steps. So we're going to keep the top 2 notes, drop the bottom note down by a semitone or a half step, and then do it again. So we're working our way from D to D flat to C. And we're going to finish off that phrase by playing B flat and C. Now each time we're playing this little run of notes, we're going to be playing it as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 5, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 5, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 5, 1 and 2, 3. So they're played as eighth notes. When we add the left hand underneath that, it sounds like this. 2, 3, 4, 5. Rhythmically, we're together, right hand runs down, and immediately following that right hand run, the left hand comes back in, because we're finishing on 1 and 2 and. That's the way I think about coordinating this. Let's do one more time, just like that. A little bit faster this time though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, now we have the explosion of trumpets. We're going to play that explosion by playing chords in the right hand. We're going to start off with a G minor chord again. This time it's in first inversion, so we have B flat, D, and G. We're going to hit that twice underneath or on top of our G bass. As we move up to B flat, we're now going to play a B flat minor chord. So every note we play in the left hand is going to be associated with the same minor chord in the right hand. So B flat minor is D flat, F, and B flat. Then we hop to C minor, which is E flat, G, and C. Then back down to the G minor. As we go down to the F, we have F minor, A flat, C, and F. Then F sharp minor, which is A, C sharp, and F sharp before we land back on G minor. Now this sequence in the right hand, moving around these chords, can be a little tricky to get nice and smooth. So take your time finding your way around those chords, knowing that you are playing in the valleys of the black keys, so you won't be able to just slide your way across. If you want to move from here to your B flat minor, you will have to lift. If you're a player that doesn't like to lift, I'm very sorry. This is going to force you to. So we're lifting up so we can land in our B flat minor and again in our C minor. We have to hop over those black keys with a little bit of height, bit of clearance. And as we come down to the F minor, it's really the same shape as the first chord, the G minor. Everything comes down a note. But then we have the mirror image or the inverse, where we had a black key, then 2 white keys. Now F sharp minor is the opposite. We have a white key and then 2 black keys before landing on the G minor. Let's go through that chord pattern a couple of times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One more time. 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, following that last chord, we're now into our second section of melody in this part 1. And again, we're kind of working within G minor. So the right hand is now going to head up to B flat, just above where we were playing. So we're quite high on the piano here. If you don't have the full range of a piano on your keyboard, then you can drop this section down. It's totally fine. Play within the scope of your instrument. So we're starting on B flat, down to G, and then all the way up to F sharp. A nice big jump of a major 7th there. And as we did before, we're going to walk down in semitones on the last note. So then we do F, then we do E, and then we finish off with E flat and D. So again, starting on B flat, down to G, up to F sharp, then to F, then to E, then E flat and D. Now rhythmically, this section is a little trickier. In modern renditions of this theme song, that little melody tends to start on the beat like this. But the original theme doesn't. It starts after the beat like this. So what I'm doing there is actually starting on beat 2. 1 and 2 E and, which means I'm linking in that second left hand hit as I hit the top note of my pattern. Again, we're coming out of this chord section as well, by the way. So we've got beat 1 on the chord, 1. So we're linking in that right hand with that left hand hit. So let's come out of the chord section, nice and slow, and we'll run through that riff as well. All right, chord section coming up. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, at the end of that phrase, you might have noticed that I walked up from B flat to B natural and then landing on octaves on C. That's where we're going to start part 2, which will be after this video on HDpiano. So that's the little transition from part 1 to part 2. Now, at the very top of this video, before I came in with our ostinato riff, I played a trill. And that was the trill back and forth between D and E flat, not B flat, D and E flat. Now in the original recording, that's a flute that does that part. Builds the tension before we run up to our starting note and our left hand groove. So I want to talk to you about trills for a second, because you might have noticed me do something a little unusual. I played that trill with 2 hands. Which is kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't call it cheating, but it's definitely not the way that you would see a lot of piano players play that trill. And I want to let you know that there are different ways of doing it. That is one that works for me in this instance, because it's quite a long trill. It goes for a full 5 beats in the first measure, and then another 4 beats in the second measure before we run up to our starting note. So it's quite a long trill. I get fatigued and my trill starts to get a bit messy, so I found that if I did this, I could trill for a much longer time, keeping everything nice and even. However, if you would like to experiment with trilling in the more traditional sense, then usually you would start with your thumb and use your 3rd finger on that note. You'd back and forth between those 2 fingers, which might seem a little unusual because you've got a 2nd finger right there, but note the change in how my hand sits if I try to put my 2nd finger on there. Everything's now rotating outwards, whereas with here, I've now got a bit more of a straight line between the 3rd finger and the thumb. And with the trill, we want to be as loose as possible. Rather than trying to just force the fingers down, We want to make sure that there's arm movement, there's wrist movement involved. And that's how you're going to get that nice and quick. Eventually. Start slow, and eventually you'll be able to speed up until that trill is nice and fast. I'll show you my best attempt at that right now. Now, that was wildly inconsistent, I admit. And I have an excuse. I'm playing on a digital piano. Digital pianos are a little bit harder to trill on than acoustic pianos, just because of the way they're built, unless you've got a really, really fancy digital. So if you're playing a keyboard with an unweighted key, you might find trilling almost really impossible. Maybe it's a mission impossible. Oh, no, he didn't. Anyway, so I just wanted to let you know about that, give you some options. So if you're trying to trill the traditional way and you're finding it really challenging, why not have a go at two hands? Which might also be equally challenging to get that nice and smooth. Just have a go at different styles, different options. So the trill goes for 5 beats and then another 4 before we run up. That little run, by the way, is D, E flat, F, F sharp, and G, all on 16th notes. And it goes quite quickly because this song moves quite quickly. It's 171 beats per minute. 171, that's pretty quick. So what I'm going to do now to finish off is play through everything that we've played so far, again at full speed. However, I'm going to leave the trill off this run through. If you want to hear it again, rewind back to the start, because I want to give you a chance to come in on that first ostinato without feeling the pressure of nailing that trill, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, and on 4, I'm going to start on 5, I'm going to start my run up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. Pretty quick, hey? All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, I can catch my breath now. Great job so far on learning through part 1. If you're on HDpiano, just click on the next lesson to continue. And if you're on YouTube, head over to HDpiano.com for the rest of the song. Do you have a request? Well, visit requests.hdpiano.com and follow us on your favorite socials at HDpiano. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe and give us feedback in the comments. My name is Dion, and you're at HDpiano, the home of the hybrid piano lesson.